I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
Looks like you got an object right in front of you, Mark. Can you look out there?
Discovery, we're sending you an orbiter state vector.
Sparkling bed of diamonds out there. Is that a real picture, or are we just getting some video fuzz?
I don't know what it is. That one is really impressive.
There are, on the other side of the coin, at least 5 proofs that the objects were not ice particles, therefore spacecraft, and they were either extraterrestrial or terrestrial, obviously.
We have an unidentified flying object.
For over 2,000 years, humankind has speculated that it is not alone in the universe. But it wasn't until September 1959 that American astronomers first put forward a practical, technically feasible proposition to search the cosmos for life forms other than ourselves. Less than a year after that, the idea was translated into practice. Since then, SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, has fired the imagination of millions around the world. However, the practicalities of SETI make the proverbial search for the needle in the haystack pale into insignificance. In fact, it's been calculated the quest is more akin to delving for a 2-inch bodkin in a haystack 35 times the size of Earth. All sky surveys up to a distance of 70 million light-years made at Harvard, Buenos Aires and Ohio since the 1970s have failed to detect any evidence of omnidirectional transmissions. After years of analysing hundreds of billions of signals, fewer than 100 have given the appearance of artificiality, and none of these could be relocated in repeated surveys. The world of astronomy then remains divided between the true believers, who think they will find evidence of extraterrestrial life in our or other galaxies, and skeptics who regard that, and the work of SETI in particular, as either a diversion from more important things or a gigantic waste of time, resources and money. It's a curious fact that NASA is forbidden by Congress to seek communications or signals from the very intelligent life-harbouring planet SETI hopes to find. NASA is forbidden, therefore, to spend its time, resources and money on seeking out contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. But what if that extraterrestrial intelligence were to establish contact with NASA, directly or indirectly? What then? And where does NASA and its US Congress stand when it comes to UFOs? Could a small proportion of the residual evidence, gleaned from millions of worldwide UFO observations and case histories, point to an extraterrestrial presence already in our midst? Should claims and statements made by credible professionals and observers be ignored? Should intensive and documented interest shown in the UFO phenomena by every strand of the military and intelligence community be simply tossed aside? Should countless photographs and film footage taken of the phenomenon over the years be looked upon as worthless? Should radar tapes, which have recorded the phenomenon on 400 occasions, be deemed as flawed? Should Congress, then, pay lip service to NASA, the scientific community at large, and its military and intelligence chiefs, or is it time that politicians began to address the most important issue of our time? Is man, as some would have us believe, a unique species to this universe? One that evolved over the eons to finally stand upright and walk this planet? One that was able in the course of less than a century to progress from horse-driven carriages to putting a man on the moon? How was this staggering technological progress achieved over such a short period of time? Is it pure coincidence, then, that midway through this period, reports of flying saucers began to emerge from around our world? At the precise moment when man was signalling his intentions to step forth from his earthbound environment, the phenomenon we now term UFOs signal back. Throughout the documented history of those early pioneering manned missions into space, one can find numerous references made by both astronauts and cosmonauts to witnessing and sometimes describing curious anomalous objects seen while in orbit around the Earth. John Glenn likened these to fireflies, and for a time NASA actually believed they had stumbled across living critters, according to one of its retired astronauts, Scott Carpenter. The years went by, and with each passing decade there appeared no let-up in reports of UFO activity. But in the late 1980s, those reports took on far greater significance with the arrival of the camcorder. In the space of a few short years, what was once regarded as an extremely rare event, to capture a UFO on film, has now become commonplace. And while a sizable proportion of that video footage leaves most unimpressed, like the phenomena itself, a small residue of what remains can be termed impressive. In July 1991, millions of people throughout Mexico stared skywards to observe a solar eclipse. That day, several UFOs appeared in those same skies. Skeptics would later conclude that these were nothing more than planets or stars, but the video evidence, recorded independently at several different locations, suggested otherwise. Much has been said, written and claimed as to why more UFOs have emerged from Mexico than any other nation on the planet during the 1990s. Indeed, there are those who would argue that most, if not all, of the 5,000 plus hours of amateur camcorder footage taken of UFOs in the skies above Mexico this past decade alone is nothing to write home about. That the bulk of the footage can easily be explained. That some has been deliberately manufactured, while the rest has captured nothing more than passing aircraft, balloons, meteors, or falling space debris. Dependent on your point of view, the objects depicted in these sequences are either balloons or UFOs. Interestingly, during filming, the camera operators and those closest by never refer to these objects as balloons. Others liken them to spheres, a term first used alongside Foo Fighters when describing anomalous objects seen by Allied pilots operating in the Pacific theatre of World War II. Outside of Mexico, there have been other recorded instances where spheres have been seen and captured on film. Here are two recent examples. These spheres appeared over Stirling, Scotland during the summer of 1998. Local resident Brian McPhee borrowed a camcorder from his cousin after being puzzled by the repeated appearances of these objects high overhead. Some were seen to hover close to and then descend into or through the clouds. Elsewhere, some were seen to emerge from the clouds before darting away at incredible speeds. And take this as another example. Filmed in broad daylight over central London in July 1999, Christopher Martin was on hand to record the moment when this sphere appeared amidst one of the world's busiest air corridors. Was this a balloon or something else? But the term sphere is not just used to describe anomalous objects seen from the ground. Curiously enough, just 2 months after the Mexico eclipse, similar sphere-like objects were recorded by the crew of the Discovery space shuttle. Anomalous objects seen on the STS-48 mission footage, taken on the 15th of September 1991, have been explained away by NASA as nothing more than ice crystals, whose sudden movement was caused by the release of directional jet nozzles from the shuttle itself. What, though, the mysterious meteor-like streaks seen in the same sequence? And what of this counter-explanation to NASA's ice crystal theory by Dr. Jack Kasher of Nebraska State University?
At least 5 proofs that the objects were not ice particles, therefore spacecraft.